What's going on, everybody? It is Lane and Phil, and we are here today to talk to you about teams. We got a new teams tournament coming up, and we are so excited to really start prepping. It's looking like we're going to have a couple new armies to play with, so that's going to be pretty interesting, some new codexes. And we decided we're going to do a full series talking about getting ready for it. We're going to do pairings prep as kind of our little mini series that we're going to be doing, talking about how to get ready for teams as a captain and as a player. And what is our first episode, our first topic, Phil? What are we talking about today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the crucial composition. You could win or lose your team tournament based on how you prepare. Now, the best part about teams, there is no right way to do it in the sense that there are a lot of different ways that you can layer the players that you have and the armies that you have available to be successful in teams. There is no one true answer to figuring these things out. So if you want to get 8 of your best buddies together and go play 40K, you could take the armies that you have available, and then you could be really effective with those armies. So we're going to talk about like how you prepare the armies that the army strategies that we want included in our team of 8. And that's not just based on the fact that this one army can only do this one thing. There are a lot of armies that can do multiple different roles, and we just got to be able to identify those roles. And then our play styles are going to match that as well. Some people run an aggro Death Guard, like our good friend Matt, who has a very strong vehicle heavy aggro Death Guard spam. Not everyone runs it that way, and those other people are effective as well, and honestly, so is Matt. So each one of those lists can be completely different, and you and your team of 8 can be effective in your own way. And we're here to try to help you figure out how.
Yeah, it is always fun. Teams is the best way to play 40K in pretty much anybody's opinion who has played it. I think at least a strong majority, I'd say at least 80% of people I've ever talked to who have played teams say, yes, this is by far the most fun I've had playing 40K. If you haven't tried it, you really need to. And the best part is you get to play with your buddies the entire tournament. You all get to hang out. You're all playing right there next to each other, get a joke around, have a good time. And even when you're losing, it matters. And that's cool. It's fun to be like, well, I'm just trying not to get beat by 50 points. And that's my goal. All right. Fighting for those 2 points mean the world to me. And you're going to do it because that's teams and that's fun. And man, it's a great way to spend a weekend. Do it if you haven't. But we'll start diving in now. Stop hyping up teams because it's probably gotten enough already. Creating a team, you're really just, as Phil said, get 8 of your buddies together. You don't need to have some crazy system of who's on the team, who's not on the team. This is still 40K. It's a hobby that's meant to be enjoyed with friends. Just get the first 8 guys you can for all we really care. I know you guys have handpicked a couple of people in your team, Phil, to fill some slots.
So I will say,
I
will say, originally we were the team that of players that nobody else wanted at the time. So 40K Fight Club was made up of guys that weren't picked up by the Denver Mountain Trolls, MHM, some of the other local teams in Colorado. And I know I was new to the area when I got asked to join, and I joined at the inception with Roddy and the rest of the boys when we had our first team tournament down in Texas. And that was our first team tournament for Champions Cup. So that was a little bit of a trial by fire for sure. And we have brought in one new player because one of our guys, he's gone over to Japan to teach for a couple years. So he'll be over there, and we do miss him already. Jackson, can't wait for him to come back. But at the time, we did have to bring someone else on. Yeah, just to cover a spot.
Yeah, and Andy, great player who has taken that role. A super cool dude. Have gotten to play him a couple times. But really, it is get your guys together, or get your players together, and see what all options do we have. Right? You need to just take an inventory and say, what all do we have to work with here, and what people actually have options and a little bit of choice, and what can we really work with. You don't have to really be like, no, you can't play this army even if it's their favorite or anything like that. You can play any army you really want to, but you should still be trying to create a composition for your team. You're trying to make sure that when you go to the pairings table, you have all of your roles filled and you can do the things you need to there, because if you can't do that, your games just aren't going to matter, because the teams tournament style is won at the pairings table more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. It makes a huge difference. So Lane, the Wyoming team, and us, we played against each other in the last Denver 40K Fight Club team tournament. And I will say that was Lane's, I think it was your guys' second team tournament, because you also went down to Champions Cup, right?
Yeah, we had partnered up with the Cheyenne team, Bottom Table Heroes. We kind of combined forces. That was our first time really going with our full Brotan crew to a tournament in December. But yeah, a little experience goes a long way when it comes to teams. That is for sure.
Absolutely. Because that pairing process, I would say, was relatively rough for you guys, especially going into us who had one team tournament under our belt, where it was like we got all the pairings that we wanted and all the matchups that we wanted, and it was like, oh, now it's even tougher for you guys to try to climb out of that hole, because overall it is incredibly difficult, right? So yes, there are 4 roles. If we just talked in a general sense, there are 4 roles that you should be looking to fill within your army. Now, this is not a steadfast rule. This is just Lane and I's opinion on the matter. You could adjust the numbers up and down genuinely to fit your army and the armies you have available and the players you have available. This does not mean you have the success or failure of your whole team as a whole, but you do need to be cognizant of what those roles are. So the ones that we have are Pressure, Flex Anti-Tank, Flex Anti-Infantry, and then Generalist factions. So those are the 4 that we really look for when we're building our team composition. And I know Lane does as well when we're talking about just overall team composition. So Lane, hearing those, what do you think, like, what do those mean to you in terms of fleshing out a full team?
Yeah, I really think one of the ones that is probably the trickiest, and I think a lot of people can get wrong, is those anti-infantry or anti-tank roles. Is people will potentially commit way too hard to being like, this is my role. And it's like, no. You need to be able to handle those things, but you still need to be able to go into other pairings as well. And people can get a little too overzealous and being like, well, I can clear a horde. And it's like, the team you're facing might not have any hordes, and now your list doesn't really have an identity or a use and can really struggle. You want to make sure that you're really trying to fill all of these roles in moderation, right? Or at least doing them well without having to overcommit too much. And realizing what armies you're working with is the best way to go about identifying what things can fill those roles best without having to really overcommit to that role, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. We're going to have an episode that's going to come out later that's going to really dive into the depths of each one of those roles and armies that we would consider and play styles that we would consider good in those roles, because an army can be good in 2 different roles if it built differently or it's ran by different players, right? There is no such thing as a one army, one role army. I don't think. I think there's multiple ways to play it, and there's multiple ways to build those lists. So each one can be different, but we recommend 2 of each. So if I were to build a perfectly balanced list of teammates, I probably want 2 of each. Lane, any thoughts there? Would you increase or decrease any of those numbers?
You know, it's a good idea to have, but you can definitely work around it. You can have your own SKUs. You also, these are things that you are trying to have as offensive capabilities, right? When you're looking at anti-tank, anti-infantry, you know, but you can also run different SKUs that handle those specifically, right? Like you having a Chaos Knights list that runs a lot of carnivores, you know, is a pressure list as a tank SKU and can be very good at anti-tank. You know, it's almost like it is a generalist army a lot of the times, being a tank SKU like that, but it still fills all of those roles super well if detected appropriately after you kind of identify what you need as a team.
Yeah, so let's say you've gotten your 7 other buddies together and you have your 8 players ready to go, and you're starting to hammer out these lists, and you have a good idea of what your list can do, what your opponent's list can do. What else are you looking at, Lane, when you get ready for one of these team tournaments? Because we get to experiencing something here in the US that we don't get to experience very often.
Yeah, that is UTC terrain. We hardly ever get to play on it, and it is definitely very, very different to play on. Way heavier as far as like board coverage and just staging ruins. Like it is so much thicker when it comes to playing on WTC terrain versus GW, and taking that into account as you are trying to build your list. If you play very shooty things, there's only a couple of shooting lanes on some of those terrains or on those terrain layouts, and it's just like, well, if you get paired onto that, how are you going to make the most of it? Or are you just trying to smash your stuff right next to each other and shoot down the same path? and that's not always really going to be very helpful for you. So understanding what terrain layouts you're working with is very, very important when it comes to your list building and composition.
Yeah. I mean, armies change completely. I'm not going to say disregard, but when I'm looking at events over in England, and you'll see it when we talk about it in our Mind Over Meta segment, those England WTC scoring, WTC layouts are completely different. Armies can be better in those layouts than they can in GW layouts, because GW layouts, as Lane was saying, are shooter friendly. They have huge firing lanes. You can always access the middle, and you can do these things. So like my Custodians list looks completely different depending on what it is that I'm going to. My Gene Stealer Cult list looks completely different depending on what I'm going into, especially terrain. And I'm not talking layouts 1, 2, and 6 for GW. It's like, no. If it's a WTC terrain, I might not even run certain units because they can be so oppressive. So Lane said it already, but teams layouts are not exactly the same. You don't have 8 tables that are all the same layouts. Okay. You have 2 of every style of layout. You have a heavy, a medium heavy, a medium light, and then a light table. So there's 2 of each. And the way the pairing process works is the individuals at the beginning of the pairing, they select their tables first. And then as the pairings go down, each table selects. So if you are that last table, second to last pairing, or whatever the case is, you're getting the dregs. You're getting what everybody else didn't want. Yeah. So you have to be able to play on multiple terrains. So 1, you can't guarantee the style board that you're on, so you need to be able to play on multiple. And 2, if you are put on a certain type of terrain, you have to be able to execute on it. So yeah, because your opponent gets, depending on how the pairing works out, your opponent may be the one that picks the terrain. So it's like, oh, I got the pairing I wanted, and we're going heavy. So all your guns, Tau gun line, are not doing anything anymore. That's really tough and can be very hard to overcome.
Yeah, it definitely can. And that's one of the things, understanding your terrain packet that you are going to be playing on is so crucial, because if you end up with a bunch of melee pressure lists that all need those perfectly placed staging ruins, in general, those WTC boards are heavier, but they still have some lighter board options where ruins are turned a little bit or this way or that way that are more open. And they do definitely make a difference for some of those armies, but making sure you aren't skewing too hard and having too many redundancies on gun lines, on, those melee pressure lists. You can't have too many of them. Or when you go through your pairings process, one of those people are going to end up, you're going to have a heavy board for your Tau player, and they just go, oh crap, I can't shoot anything. And it goes horribly. It could have even been a fairly good matchup that they felt confident in. But as soon as they got the heavy board, that was a 5-point swing on, they thought it was a 15-5. It's now a 10-10 because they just can't interact with their opponent effectively.
Correct. You bring out a great point. It's the first thing I learned in Champions Cup. So there's a very good Team USA player who played for Tundra Tactics. That was my first, that was my toughest game when we went to Champions Cup. His name's Kit. He is a fantastic player. For those that don't know him, he is a regular in the 40K community. He is a top level player and an excellent game player of 40K. He and I played against each other. So it was Tundra Tactics versus us, and they whooped on us. It was bad. It was not pretty. They outpaired us. They outplayed us. They did everything they could. Now, I will like to point out that in the team rankings, we're technically ahead of them right now. So I can say that 40K Fight Club is better than Tundra Tactics, but don't come at me because I remember what happened last time. I don't want to do that again.
I'm sure they'll play you for it. I bet
they will play us for it. But we're over in Denver, so oh no, the team tournament's full. You guys can't come down. Yeah. Shucks. But they were great guys, and they taught us a lot. And honestly, for our first team tournament, I couldn't have asked for better opponents, especially in terms of competitive play. Because I will say I'm a relatively good player, and I don't get beat like that often. But going into a guy like Kit and how good he was, it was apparent that he got the matchup he wanted, the terrain he wanted, and then they played a round following us, and he also 20-0'd that guy. And I was like, Kit, I don't understand. That felt like a relatively even matchup. It was I think it was Crusher Stampede Nids at the time versus his double monolith, obnoxious, redeploy, move around dynasty crap that everyone was running. And I was like, Kit, I don't understand. This should have been at least a close game. He's a good player. I don't understand. And he goes, he chose the wrong board. He chose the wrong terrain setup, and he lost. That the game was over when he selected the wrong terrain layout. I was like, that is insane, because nowhere else would you ever experience something like that, picking the wrong terrain. Yeah, I did play in England for a couple of years, so I got player place terrain for a while, and I did when I came back, I got player place terrain for a while, and I hated that. I did not enjoy it because you could do the same thing. You could make a mistake with player place terrain and your game could be over without you even knowing it. So yeah.
Yeah, thank God player place just does not exist in the team format, because that would be horrendous. I mean, if two of the tables you had light, medium, heavy, two player place, absolutely awful. That would be the worst thing ever. But we're gonna try it anyway. That's gonna be the next event I run. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you won't have. I won't be there.
Yeah. Player place. Thank God that stuff is behind us. It is nice to be able to have consistent terrain, 100%. But yeah, getting to go play. I mean, we played against our second round when we were down in Dallas. We played against the team that won ATC like not a month before, and it was just impressive. We tried our hardest and barely put up any points. It felt like we did not horrible, but not good by any stretch of the imagination. But you really do learn so much. We had no idea when we went down to Dallas about knowing what layouts you were going to be working with, and really understanding how important it was to be like, this person is our first defender because they get to pick this board no matter what, and having that reliability and that plan to just work with for the rest of your pairings process is so crucial. And that's where it really comes in. As far as some of these lists go, we haven't talked about defenders. You can pick them from any of these roles, but having that defender and knowing that you have a couple of options saying, okay, well, we really want to get this person on a light board with our first defender. We just need to do that. That's very, very important. And it's making sure, again, like we talked about, not having too many things that require the same layouts. Having very agnostic armies is so important to your team composition. Like, I generally try to have two. You can get away with three, but having two of your 8 armies that really take a lot of priority, whether it is in terrain or in matchups, things that just, they have almost more reds than greens, but their greens are huge, so you take them anyway, right? Things that just require a lot of priority. Try not to have more than 2 of those if you can, is like my other thing, like my other biggest thing when it comes to advice. Take armies that generally are like, you know what, we got some reds, we got some greens, but we got a lot of yellow in the middle and stuff like that is totally fine. If you have too many things that have too many reds and too many greens, they're just too swingy. It makes it very, very difficult to get all of them into the right pairings and on the right terrain.
For those that are kind of confused why Lane is referring to colors, one of the tools that we have that both Wyoming and us use and a lot of other teams use is we have an Excel spreadsheet that I use that is conditionally formatted, that auto-populates, that gives us percentages and pairing probabilities and stuff like that. So that way we're collecting data, and this will be the next thing that we go into because it's super important. Your preparation, getting ready for a tournament, can take as much time as the tournament itself, probably significantly more in terms of the amount of games and the thinking that you have to do, more than a normal regular tournament. So I have an Excel spreadsheet for our team. And what the team's responsibility is to do is when they're playing their games and playing against people like they normally would, the expectation is they have an understanding of where that matchup would be in WTC scoring. You can look up that on your own. I'll give you a little bit of homework. Don't freak out. It's just a little bit of homework. UTC scoring is a little different. There's point differentials that actually matter in terms of how many points you can win your team or how many points you could potentially give the other team. And all of those things matter. If you have a question, if you just type in Warhammer WTC scoring, it'll pop right up. You'll be okay. I promise it's just a little bit of math. But our team has to put in what they think they would be into that army. So, for example, my Custodes into the Inari matchup. What do I think that's going to be? I've played games into some very good Inari players, and then I would say, okay, I think if that's going to be a 20. I'm 20-0ing every Inari player, obviously, and I would put that in my spreadsheet. Roddy would laugh at me and then say, Phil, you're an idiot. You need to actually put what the realistic number is in there. But then you fill out your whole spreadsheet for every faction, and that's how you prepare. And the reds and greens mean like it's the Excel spreadsheet is conditionally formatted, so a higher number is going to be closer to green, and then a lower number is going to be closer to red. So all of those things matter, and that's the kind of work that some of these teams are doing to actually get ready. So I have it's like a 4-page spreadsheet that has like pairing probabilities, pairing matrices. It'll give us all our results and automatically generate those. It also pulls stats from StatCheck. So it pulls all of player rankings so we can see who's matched up on what team and then see like elos and what armies they're playing. That way we can have a good idea. So all of that matters just for information, because teams is all about information.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm lowbrow. I don't have half of that stuff that he just talked about. I'm gut checking a lot of it, but eventually I'll probably get around to setting up something similar. But yes, you still can do it without some of that. It's going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more typing, and things like that. It's all you need to just understand the information you're presenting yourself. And no matter the complexity, that's the most important thing, is just talk to your players, say, hey, what do you just never want to face? And they'll tell you that, and you're like, sweet, here's some red. I don't want to pair them into that no matter what. Just do the best with whatever you can and you have time for it. It doesn't have to be super crazy.
No,
if you have the
not.
time and you have, it's awesome. It's great. You guys did very, very well with it, and I expect you guys are going to do very, very well at the upcoming Teams event as well. But you can do what I did, and I just spent 50 hours the week before just looking at everybody's list, just doing all of this by hand, and it worked out pretty well. I mean, Fight Club was one of the things we wanted to see the least, and I think we were 5 points off from tying or something like that. It was still a definitive loss for us. But the fact that we were remotely close, I was like, man, that is all I could ask for where our team is at in our growth. We were so proud. And it was a great time. But yes, you don't have to overcomplicate it. Get some reds and greens on there. Try to just understand the information you are looking at. And you have to look when it comes to doing all the pairings. We'll do a lot more in depth in the future. We're trying to focus mostly on the team building itself. But it's important to understand that you can't build a team with too many things that have too many reds. And that's the main point we're trying to get across. You need to at least get a baseline level of this matrix put together where you can look and go, oh man, we have 4 armies that have a lot of reds that we're going to have to try to pair around. You need to at least get to that base level of your matrix put together in this step to be okay, well, maybe we should see if this person could maybe play something else, or at least take a different version of their army, right? And play maybe a little bit different of a skew that doesn't have quite so many bad matchups.
No, absolutely. And that makes the biggest difference, right? And unfortunately, I would love to say the advice we give you is going to be a light switch for you and you're going to be able to learn all these things. But unfortunately, it may not happen until you get to the pairing table and you're down to your final 2 or 3 pairings and you're like, shit, I have 3 pairings and they're all bad. And no matter which way I slice this, every one of these guys is going to get a red. Every single one of these armies is going to have a pairing into red, and you will learn that lesson. And hopefully you only have to learn it once. Maybe for those of you that learn this lesson when Lane and I are telling you it now, maybe it'll help. But as of right now, my expectation is you will learn it at the table, just like we did. And, it will flip a switch for you in terms of what you actually need to do to be effective.
Yeah. And I don't know. I find some of these, it's so hard to give very, very good, genuine, specific advice because there's just so many factors as we try to dive into the pairings process and stuff that we're trying our best. And I feel like we've done very good so far, but
so.
It is one of those things until you've gone through it. It definitely can just be I don't know what you're talking about. No matter how well someone explains it to you, you have to see it. The nice thing is for those of you who aren't a part of the 40K Fight Club community that's putting on this event, there is a captain's chat that has been put together. And so we're going to be doing mock pairings and things like that, getting people some practice going into the weekend, and giving people a chance to, this is what they're talking about. And that'll hopefully help kind of make some things click as well as these videos, because it definitely can just be, we went to Dallas and we had no idea what we were doing. And we were there to have a great time, but there's definitely a lot to learn about teams before you go.
Absolutely. And we're going to round it out with one final thing. If we talk about getting ready for a tournament and that creation of the armies and the lists, there's one more thing that you need to be cognizant of. Okay. It's a secret. It's just, you need to be playing with people that you enjoy spending time with. Okay. You cannot be miserable doing any of this. You cannot be miserable taking the army that you're going to take. You cannot do any of these things because at the end of the day, this is still a hobby. Lane and I have already said it. yes, there is some level of responsibility. Like if I go 0-6, the only person that's going to feel bad during a singles tournament is me. It's like, man, I guess I suck now. I'm going 0-6. I've never gone 0-6 before. I guess like it's just the way it is. But when you're in a team tournament, like there is some level of responsibility where I want to do well because my team wants me to do well, and my team wants to do well, so I have to do well. So there is a certain level of like, I want to play with people I get along with. And if I happen to get by Kit Smith, like I don't want my team to turn around and tell me that I'm an awful player. I want them to laugh and joke about it, maybe give me a little shit, and then we can move on with our days. So that is the final part, right? Because this is a team tournament and it can be a great environment. Like it is the most fun I've ever had playing 40K. It's such a cool environment. It's such a cool experience. But that would be my final piece of advice. If you're going to bring 7 guys and girls together to play some 40K, please make sure you just get along with them, because that for me is the most important part. That's what makes teams so much fun. Otherwise, I'd just rather play singles.
Yeah. And never be afraid to be the person who is taking the losses. All right. If you're like, hey, my whole goal this weekend, I am catching grenades left and right. Somebody doesn't want to play that list. You throw me at it. I'll take one for the team. Your team will love you for that. All right. Do not downplay how good it is to have some people on your team who are like, I know I'm going to lose every game this weekend, but I brought lists that are prepared to lose, but still score a reasonable amount of points. And making sure you have 1 or 2 of those on your team will make a big difference. You don't need an ego. You're not trying to 20-0 anybody that weekend. You are there for your team, and people will laugh with you and at you that you got shit on by yet another player. But you all expected it, and they didn't want to take that. They didn't want to take that beating. You did. Be that player.
Who's going to jump on Ynnari? Who's going to jump on Chaos Knights or Imperial Knights or whatever skew you're going into? Lane, that is a great last piece of advice.
Nobody wants to be that guy generally, but it is a great person to be. Like, somebody's got to hop on some grenades, and there are grenades to be hopped on, especially if you end up running into some of these, like Fight Club, Denver Mountain Trolls. They're going to have grenades that somebody is just, give it one of these, hop on it, and just accept your fate. It's going to be rough, but someone has to do it. So keep that in mind. There are going to be just some matchups that you can't win. So just somebody's got to do it. Try to pick the person who probably had the most reds anyway and say, all right, you go have fun. Do your best. We'll have a shoulder for you to cry on later, but we appreciate you. You know? It's always nice to have one of those.
All right, Lane,
yeah, it is a blast. And yeah, I think we've got at least, I don't know how many episodes we're going to be doing in this series, but we have pairing prep coming up. We got a whole series we're doing. This was crucial composition, and hopefully this gave you a little bit more insight on how to go about really getting those first steps and kind of trying to get your team composition together and what you will be taking. I'm going to be watching this back just to remind myself of the things I need to be doing and what I need to be watching out for. But other than that, we're going to have more content on the way. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget that victory isn't given, it's forged, and it's forged right here on Mastercrafted. And we'll catch you all later.